Filed away in the filing drawer is a topic that many couples quietly wonder about but rarely admit out loud: the sexless marriage. Think of your intimacy like a luxury sports car. It looks great, it's built for performance, and the manufacturer definitely intended it to move. But park that thing in the garage for months or years and suddenly it's coughing, sputtering, and refusing to start. And just like you wouldn't stand in your driveway yelling at your dead engine screaming, "Try harder," you also can't fix a quiet bedroom by guilt, pressure, or awkward calendar reminders. Avoidance turns into habit, resentment builds under the hood, and before you know it, you're emotionally jump-starting your marriage with jumper cables that aren't in the owner's manual. But here's the good news. Intimacy doesn't have to stay stalled out. Even if things feel rusted, complicated, or a little embarrassing, God designed marriage with the capacity for restoration, reconnection, and yes, joy. The fact that sexless marriage is Googled more than unhappy marriage or loveless marriage, that shows just how many couples are quietly wrestling with this problem. So today, we're popping the hood, checking the engine light, and helping you understand not just how often couples should be intimate, but how to rebuild closeness from the inside out. And don't worry, we promise no shame, no blame, and no uncomfortable jars to bring back to Bible study. Just real talk, real hope, and practical insight for reigniting connection where it's grown dim. Welcome to Marriage Life and More. This is a podcast about marriage, Bible, and book studies. We interview people that have inspiring stories. I'm Daniel Moore, your host. Thank you guys for joining us this week. Over here next to me is my beautiful co-host, my wife, Michelle.
Hey.
I want to thank you guys for joining us this week. If you're not familiar with our show, check out our website at marriagelifeandmore.com for our platforms. Our YouTube and Rumble links are there. We're also in the Christian podcasting app Edify. We're also on your Alexa and Google smart devices. You can visit us on social, on Facebook, Instagram, and X at CTGap Online. If you're a fan of our show, please subscribe. Feel free to leave a comment on our platforms, give us a thumbs up or a 5-star review on Apple Podcast, and we thank you in advance for doing that. Also, our 2 new books are out: Marriage is a Mission, Living Out God's Design for Marriage, and then there's a 42-day devotional, 42 Days to a Stronger Marriage, a Christ-centered devotional for couples. You can pick either of those up at your favorite book retailer. They're also obviously on Amazon, paperback, hardback, and ebook. And there's also a 6-session study guide for marriage as a mission. So if you haven't purchased your copy yet, you can go check that out, and that'll help us here as we put out these episodes every week and all that kind of thing. It just kind of helps keep us going, and we pray that those books will be a blessing to you. Well, this week, we just want to say that we hope that you guys had a Merry Christmas. Michelle and I did. We had family in for a couple of weeks, got to see our little granddaughter. She's a little sweetie, got to see the rest of our grandkids as well. It was just an awesome time. And so hope you guys had a great Christmas and looking forward to the new year as we're up on that now. And we pray that you guys have some good plans for this upcoming year and to make things better, maybe in some areas that it's not been so great in the past, or maybe things have been really good and you're just looking to have an even better year. So we just pray God's blessings over you for that. Well, because of Christmas, we skipped last week and done just a special little story episode that Michelle and I put together for you. And we took a break from our episode that we were in on sexless marriages. Well, this week we're going to get back into that, as we're going to be getting back into sexless marriage on our Marriage Reset series as we do part 2. The lack of sexual intimacy in marriage affects not only the relationship as a whole, but also each partner individually. Society has long perpetuated the stereotype that men are always eager for sex, while women are the ones more likely to say that they're too tired or have a sudden headache by bedtime. We've absorbed the idea that male desire is constant and overwhelming, and that a real man would never turn down sex unless something catastrophic is happening. While this may ring true for many couples, it's far from universal. In roughly 1 out of every 5 marriages, it's actually the wife who has a stronger sex drive. A USA Today survey revealed that 20 to 30% of men report having little or no sexual desire. Factors that influence a man's libido are varied and complex, and often unrelated to his relationship. Things like low testosterone levels, chronic stress, an unhealthy diet, gaining weight, sleep deprivation, mental health struggles, alcohol or drug abuse, medication side effects, too much screen time, or even overuse of pornography can all decrease sexual interest. But because of the cultural narrative that we've learned that a man should always want sex, many women feel confused or rejected when their husband isn't interested in intimacy. When he turns her down or rarely initiates, a woman often starts to worry. Is he distracted by pornography? Is he cheating? Does he maybe have a hidden secret like being gay? These questions often arise because it's easier to believe the problem lies within him. But if there's no outside issue, the fear becomes much more personal. Wives often internalize their husband's disinterest, interpreting it as a sign that they aren't attractive or desirable enough. In today's culture, where male desire is often glorified, many women assume that they must be lacking something, not slim enough, sexy enough, or exciting enough. One wife put it this way: being denied sex by a spouse is one of the most painful and humiliating experiences one can endure. The physical withdrawal alone is torture, but worse is the emotional trauma of feeling that the person you have sworn to love all your life would turn his back on you. He might as well drive a stake through your heart with a note on it: I don't love you, I don't want you, I don't need you. So as we get started here this week, it already is starting to deal with some things that, as far as culture is concerned, a lot of beliefs that are always impacted into people's thoughts and to the ways that they look at sex and that kind of thing. And as I'm reading, sharing all of this here at the beginning, I remember, and I know that I've mentioned this a few times, and you've always been kind of surprised at this when I talk about it, but this is kind of a guy thing, like the at school in the locker room type talk, that kind of thing. But it's always been an ongoing joke in between men that we do have a big sex drive, that's just all we think about. That's always what's on our brain. Everything that we do, and when we talk about girlfriends, especially if you're not married yet, talking about girlfriends and that kind of thing, it seems like a lot of times the jokes will get kind of sexual and the ribs and all that kind of thing. I remember when I was dating a lot of times and my friends were dating, some of the jokes that we'd have between us is, although this wasn't supposed to be something that you're doing when you're not married, but, we'd always tease about you get some or just all this kind of stuff. There's just a lot of that kind of talk that goes on. And I know with you said that you don't really ever remember hearing conversation like that as much.
No.
Within the girls. But I think that's probably because when it comes to looking at relationships, what is probably more important to girls? When you guys, like when you were in the dating scene, all your like high school times or whatever, when you had girlfriends that had boyfriends and that kind of thing, what did you guys really talk about more as far as the boyfriend relationships of your friends versus, because I know with the guys, a lot of times our talk would get to kind of some naughty stuff that we shouldn't be talking about. But do you remember anything like how the girls came at that?
I don't know that we really, my friends and I we talked about, our relationships, and we talked about more personal stuff, like as in, how's he treating you? What's the love note say? Stuff like that. Because back then it was, you wrote love notes,
right?
And you passed letters and stuff like that. We would talk about those things. And, we may talk about, oh, did he kiss you? Was he a good kisser? But it wasn't like what you guys talked about. And
so the point with that, the reason I was kind of bringing that up is, as we shared this stuff here, these statistics and these things that are going on, it is surprising that after marriage actually happens and life begins and you start having that interaction between a husband and a wife, how a lot of times the locker room joking didn't really carry over into real life, And I think that culture, especially since from the beginning of time, we know that pornography first came out really geared towards men. They were really targeting men with pornography. And a lot of that's because men are very visual in the way that we think, the way that we comprehend things. And, when we work our way through situations and problems or relationships, whatever it may be, we're very visual in a lot of that. And so pornography was a perfect thing for Satan to throw out there and try to trip up guys. And that's what he did. And so because of that, and then it became so rampant and it started growing, you started seeing, it started with Playboy. Then there's all these other companies start putting out, worse and worse stuff that you could look at because the guys were just taking this in like crazy. And of course, nowadays we know that it's kind of flipped the script a little bit. The women are having just as much issue with that also. But as we were sharing here and we got towards the end of what I was sharing, we was talking there about what the one woman said. Now, whenever it comes to married couples, so from your aspect of it, your side of it, when we went through times in our marriage that we had issues with the sex part and all that kind of thing, did that make you feel some of the ways that this woman here mentioned when she was saying that I don't love you, I don't want you, I don't need you, that drove a stake through your heart? Did it make you wonder questions about things that I was doing? How did you kind of perceive that? Because we did go through that, which I know some of ours ended up too, in the long run, ended up because of our relationship was falling apart, basically. But when that all first started, how did you feel about that?
I mean, I would say that too. I mean, it crossed my mind that the fact is, did you have somebody else, I don't really, honestly, I don't really remember on that part. But I mean, I do recall the fact that, I did question the fact that, did you have somebody else? Were you pouring into somebody else besides me?
How did that affect your personal view of yourself?
That I wasn't good enough.
Yeah. That really pounded on your self-security.
Mm-hmm. And I already had an issue with that
all
to
that
begin
kind
with.
of thing.
So.
Yeah. So that just kind of made it worse.
Mm-hmm.
So we know, though, that with our...
Did you ask me that from the very beginning?
Huh?
Did you ask me that from the very beginning?
What?
That question?
No.
Okay. I'm sorry. I'm just like all over the place today, guys. I do apologize. And hopefully he won't take this part out because it lets you know we're human. And I'm like, my brain is not thinking today. So I apologize if I'm, when I ask him a question and I'm like looking at him like, what are you talking about? So I haven't got my coffee in me yet this morning. So sorry.
Yeah. And we do not rehearse these questions before we record.
No.
So.
And it's been a long week with kids all here and everything else. So I do apologize. I thought maybe he asked me that question, then I didn't answer it and he came back around. So
yeah. No, I hadn't asked you that one yet, but...
See, we're human.
So, yeah. But as we look, though, at like our relationship, we ended up finally, as it came down to it, we did start having a separation in our relationship where, any of you that's listened to episode 199 and listened to our testimony and everything, that we almost got divorced. So when all of that started happening, that's obviously something, one of the first things that's going to go out the door is the sexual intimacy. Because you're trying, if the interest in the relationship isn't there anymore and you're looking towards separating off and going your separate directions, then the first thing that usually happens with a couple that does that is they want to break that intimate relationship that they have because that kind of keeps you glued together to an extent. And so, but I do like, though, how it did say here, a lot of times whenever this starts happening, it isn't really because of the relationship. Guys do go through a lot of things that happens through life where things change, and it does create issues. And as I was looking at that list, obviously as men get older, our testosterone levels do drop, and sometimes men have to get medicated for that. That's just a natural thing that happens as we age. Chronic stress is a big one. I think even if you have stress in your life, that's probably one of the last things you're going to think about.
Oh, absolutely.
Is, wanting to have that type of intimacy between the two of us because that stress is just constantly there, and it's that's what's on your mind the whole time. Then, of course, you've got unhealthy diet, gaining weight. That's actually affected me a few times. And
Same.
I fight my weight. And I do know how I feel when I fight my weight. And you feel exhausted. You just feel like you just want to sit down in a chair and just do nothing. It's like last thing you think about is exerting energy. There's sleep deprivation. I don't usually have a problem with that one, but if I do have just a little bit of sleep, it can affect me because I do need my sleep. Mental health struggles, alcohol and drug abuse, medication can have a side effect of that. And I think you've experienced that with some of the medications you've had to take. And of course, pornography is a big one. Anytime pornography gets introduced, that almost becomes a replacement if that becomes an addiction, because once you get hooked on the pornography, your marriage sex life will never add up to what you're going to see in video, even though it's not a physical relationship. It's a mind game at that point.
Yeah.
And so that's why you always have to stay away from pornography. So there's a lot of different reasons, that this may happen. And so I think it's good to bring that up because I think one of the worst things that you can do as a spouse is if one of the spouses in the relationship has a tendency to all of a sudden seem like they're being distant and all of a sudden they're not really seeming to be interested anymore. I think probably, especially if it's the husband that's starting to distance himself, I know probably one of the first things the wife is going to want to do is attack herself. She's going to want to think, well, he's losing interest in me. I'm just not pretty enough. All these things that we mentioned earlier. And then you may attack the other spouse with those notions of what you think is going on, but it may not be really what's going on. It may not be that the husband is disinterested anymore. Maybe he is fighting some stress. Maybe he is having a weight issue right at the moment that's really affecting his health and, causing him to not have where he needs to be in the relationship. So I think it's very important when you come into these situations where it seems like the sex has dropped off and one of the spouses still has a pretty good drive going and the other one all of a sudden seems like they're sliding away from you. I would, in my own mind, I would think that you don't want to attack that person over what's going on. I think that's where communication needs to come in.
Actually, that's what I was getting ready to say. You need to communicate. You need to talk about what's going on so that the other spouse knows.
Yeah.
That it's not them and that you're fighting that battle. And, as the other spouse that knows that whatever it may be, whether it's weight, mental, or whatever, that spouse can pray or help you at the same time.
Yeah.
They're there to be a part of you, to help you, guide you, and, walk alongside of you. And I think that's very, very important is communication when you're going through that. And I mean, we talk about it now.
Yeah.
Like, that's one of the biggest things. It's like, it's like I'm had a rough day or I'm stressed out and it's been a crazy week. We talk about it. I mean, that doesn't mean that spontaneous, if we have that spontaneous sex, it's not like that, but, and we don't schedule it, that's not it. But I know if you're having a crazy busy week and you're not mentally ready, I know I'm walking into something that you're not going to want.
Right. It'll just be going through emotion at that point.
And I don't want that.
If it even is able to happen.
Yeah. So that's a thing I feel like where communication does come in and you have to communicate.
Yeah. And it's a good time to probably talk about this a little bit too. We did an episode on it, but you've had a lot of surgeries and different things that's happened to you in your body that has totally reconstructed the intimacy levels that you have and the sex drive that you have.
Yeah.
And you have had to do a total reconstruct on how you approach any of that at this point. And even to this day, you still battle it, correct?
Yep, I do.
I mean, it's just one of those things that when certain organs are taken out of women or, certain types of surgeries take place, it kills that sex drive and it creates a huge issue. Yeah.
And then when you can't take hormones, because if your body stops producing them and you can't take anything because of other issues that you have, it totally knocks everything out.
Yeah.
And so it is definitely, I mean, God's really had to work on me to help me really get through mentally through our walk through of not being able to have sex, I guess is what I want to say. It's probably TMI, but it really has been because, and he has been for you too, because, you know, when you're used to doing something anytime you want, you know, and then all of a sudden it comes to a screeching halt and it can go on for years. It really can mess with you mentally, not just you, but your spouse, you know, and that's something hard to walk through and navigate.
And we just want to be open with it because we know other people of you out there that are listening are probably going through something like that. And it's not a hopeless cause.
No.
There is hope. God can help you through all of those things. He gives a grace that you just don't know exists until you have to put it into action, you know. But he does have a grace there that he can offer between both couples on both sides. And I think the biggest advice that I could give probably to that is don't give up. Because, you know, everything that you've ever worked and strove for, everything that you fought for in your marriage from day one, you can let things like this completely send you in reverse and can undo all of the good things that's ever happened in your marriage if you're not careful. And that's not what it's all about.
No, marriage isn't about that.
It's not. You know, it came with perks, and that's great. And God wants us to enjoy all of that so God can help us through that, even when the times are rough and things just aren't working like we would like for them to be. There is ways to work and navigate around all of that. And so we just want to encourage you. Now, Michelle and I, we've worked through this on our own, although I do know that there's Christian counseling and different things out there that you can also utilize if you're having issues and can't seem to get through it as a couple. Definitely look for some help with all of that, because 9 times out of 10, you can work around that stuff and have workarounds and still have a good, flourishing marriage, enjoy each other's time together intimately, as well as just out in the real world, you know. All of that can still happen.
And I want to say this too, you know, just because, as Dan said, you know, it is a perk. And, you know, this has been, 7 years, going on almost 8 years now, since I've had all my surgeries. There's a love that's so deep between the two of us. If that's something we couldn't do, it wouldn't change anything for us.
Yeah.
And because of that, you know, I truly love him even more because it's not something that he doesn't get mad at me about, you know. Our love is so deep, you don't have to have sex.
Yeah.
And I know that medically there are times that there are going to be people that cannot because of medical. But if for some reason you can, you need to work on that, because that is a perk, and it's something that your marriage needs.
Yeah, it's a bond.
Yes,
that's just done.
But if you can't for some unknown reason, you know, you focus on that marriage, you know, and give it to God, and He'll, you know, He's done wonders for us.
Yeah, He definitely has. So there is an episode as well. I can't think of what episode number it is off the top of my head right now.
We've lost that.
But if you go back about a little over a year ago or so, somewhere in that range, just within this last year, there is an episode on what happened to her with the surgeries and how we've handled that. And it talks a lot about this subject. So you can go check that one out as well. Facing ongoing rejection from a spouse can create a deep sense of insecurity for women. And I know you were talking a little bit about that a while ago. While women certainly want to feel emotionally loved, there's also a strong longing to feel attractive, desired, and cherished by the one person who knows them the best. Every wife wants to feel that her husband sees her as captivating, that he is drawn not just to her heart, but to her body as well. When those desires are left unmet and her attempts to initiate intimacy are turned away, she may start to carry a quiet, painful belief: he doesn't want me. This realization can feel isolating and emotionally exposing. On the other side, when a husband's effort to connect sexually are regularly met with disinterest or refusal, he can quickly become discouraged and disheartened. It often feels like his wife is prioritizing everything else, the children, her job, social life, or even hobbies, ahead of their physical relationship. What may feel like fatigue or disinterest in her registers as rejection to him. And over time, this builds into bitterness and emotional distance. I know a lot of times I've heard where couples will take sex and use it as a weapon. And I honestly can say that that's not a good thing to do. Michelle and I have done it a time or two in our marriage, but that's not something that we do anymore.
That was way back
that
when.
was way back when. And the reason that we say that this should not be taken as a weapon is the sex part of your marriage is actually the most intimate, most connecting thing that you can even do as a couple. And whenever, if anything is going to start playing mind games with you fast as anything, it's going to be when you reject a spouse and continually reject a spouse. I'm not just saying that. I know there's going to be times where one's going to be in the mood and the other one's not. That's just understandable. That's just the way life is. But when it becomes a cycle, and no matter how many times one spouse comes up and tries to initiate, tries to get something going, and then the other spouse continually rejects and rejects and rejects, you're starting to mess with some ones in their mind at that point. That becomes a mind game.
Yeah.
And that's also a good place for communication to shut down.
Yeah, that's what I was getting ready to say.
A lot of people don't like to talk about their sex problems.
Yeah.
They really don't. Because as we get married and we come together and we become married, we start this life together, we always want to just know that we want each other sexually. And anytime that, either one of us is wanting to have that happen, we're going to be able to come together and both people are going to be okay with it. And you're going to be able to share that together. And that one thing you're not sharing with anybody else, you're going to share that at that moment. And that's how we always think of that. Well, whenever all of a sudden we have the brakes put on and all of a sudden it's not happening anymore and we continually get rejected and rejected and rejected, but the other spouse isn't talking about why the rejection's there. And if you try to bring it up, they don't want to talk about it. They just want to put it off on, I'm tired, or all these little excuses that we give. We always know there's usually something more to it under the level than just being I'm tired. If that is an issue, then we probably need to look at something medically may be going on.
Yeah.
You've got to really, think a lot of this thing through, because I would have to say that probably 60% of the time, whenever a spouse gets rejected like that, there's probably something emotionally going on in the relationship itself that's had a breakdown. There's probably something going on where that other spouse is not at that moment wanting to connect with their spouse like they should because of something that's going on in their head. If the other spouse doesn't know what that is and you can't talk through that, you can't fix it. And so I think that when it's talking about here that, about the rejection thing and how it affects people, I know with women especially, it really starts affecting just how they feel about themselves mentally
sure.
and physically and everything.
Yes.
It just starts that issue. I know with guys, whenever we get rejected like that a lot, I know one of the first things that I think of is, what did I do that made her mad? It's like I start trying to think of all the things. What have I done here in the last month or so that ticked her off so bad? But it may not be that. It may be something completely different.
Right.
But if you and I don't talk about it,
again, communication.
We're not going to know.
Yeah.
And so always keep that in mind. Don't ever make it a practice to reject your spouse all the time. Don't let that become a habit.
Right.
Do not let that become a habit, because later on in life, when the kids are all gone and the house is all quiet and there's nobody left but you two, and you've got a lot of years ahead of you, you're going to have a long time there that you're going to have to really enjoy each other and enjoy each other's company. And a big part of that is the intimacy side of things. And you don't want to lose sight of that and have to recreate that all over again, 20 years into your marriage, when you should have already had this down and had it going.
That's a good point.
Your relationship will be a lot closer when you hit 20, 25 years, 30 years. The more that you keep this as a part of your regular marriage cycle, you draw closer and closer to each other. So many men internalize their wife's sexual disinterest. Research by Shanti Feldhahn in her book for women only, What You Need to Know About the Inner Lives of Men, discovered that when a man hears a phrase like "not tonight," He often interprets it as I'm not interested in you. It's just what I just said. This perceived rejection cuts deeper than many wives realize. At his core, a man carries a strong desire to feel wanted by the woman that he loves. Feldhahn highlights that this isn't just about physical need, it's about a man feeling chosen, pursued, and affirmed by his wife's desire for him. Shanti Feldhahn explains this deep desire. Sex gives them an increasing sense of confidence and well-being that carries over into every other area of his life. The opposite is also true. When a husband doesn't feel desired by his wife, he not only feels his wife is rejecting him physically, but that she is somehow rejecting his life as a husband, provider, and a man. As the classic rock band Cheap Trick once sang, I want you to want me, a lyric that echoes a deep but often unspoken longing within many men. Most husbands don't easily acknowledge this need, and some may not even realize it's there, but it's a powerful reason why they're energized when their wife initiates intimacy or engages with enthusiasm. To them, it's not just about physical activity, it communicates something deeply affirming, I desire you. I can definitely back this up with what she's talking about here. And we've talked about this, even I think in the 4 Laws of Love, we talked about this, about how what the man needs.
Yeah.
In his life, what makes him feel like he's a man. And we talked about what women need that makes them feel like a woman. And one thing that men really do thrive on is the respect in the home and the fact that they are able to take care of their family, the fact that they are able to provide. If you want to kick a man while he's down faster than anything is when a man loses his job or gets laid off or fired or whatever it may be, and all of a sudden he can't support his family, and things start failing around him financially, and they start having to go through things that are not very typical for a married relationship. Men start feeling failure because it's instilled within inside of us that we're the provider, that we are the rock of that home, and we want to make sure that our wife, our children, and everybody underneath that roof is taken care of. And so whenever something like this happens, again, this is, like I said earlier, it's a mind game. And if a man gets to a point where his wife just all of a sudden just starts rejecting all the time when he initiates and that kind of thing, that really works on the man and his security. And it makes him start feeling like he's a failure at that point. There's something going on here. I failed. What's going on here? And so it's very dangerous to let that happen without talking through it, just like you and I were talking about a while ago. If those issues come up and there's problems, you have to keep that communication string open and to where you guys can talk and make sure that you talk through, because if there are issues, they need fixed. Yeah. And so you need to make sure that each side knows what those issues are. Now, when sex disappears from a marriage, the impact is felt individually and relationally. For the couple, the bedroom can shift from a space of connection and comfort to one of tension and disconnection. What should be a restful sanctuary from the chaos of daily life, a private, sacred space to reconnect emotionally and physically, can instead become a battleground marked by silence, resentment, and guarded distance. Sexual disconnection often leads to emotional withdrawal. Couples may begin to feel like roommates rather than lovers, and the repeated cycle of rejection or avoidance builds layers of hurt. What starts as frustration can easily grow into blame, bitterness, and misunderstanding. Over time, these emotions fester into a deep sense of isolation. As the weeks slip into months and then years, reigniting that lost spark can seem increasingly impossible. But while the challenge grows with time, it is not irreversible. Healing intimacy and restoring connection is absolutely possible with intentionality. What's the next one? Open communication and a shared commitment to rebuilding affection and closeness. The longer a relationship goes without sex, the more difficult it is to revive the sex life. But as we were talking earlier, it can be done.
That's right.
It's not impossible for that to happen. And so I think one of the most important points here that was made in this is you may think that by you rejecting your spouse is only going to affect you.
Right.
But as everything goes, anytime something like this happens, or even if you make a bad choice or a bad decision, it very rarely just affects you.
Exactly.
There's always
That's good.
always other people around you that it's going to affect.
Yep.
And especially in the marriage relationship, again, this is the one thing that the husband and wife share between each other that they don't share with anybody else.
That's right.
And so if you do reject and you turn down and decide that, this is not my thing and I'm not going to allow this to happen for whatever reason's going on in your mind, that you're deciding that you're going to make that choice, you're destroying not only your own self, but the other person that's in that relationship, probably even more so. Because most generally, the person that's rejecting, they usually know why they're rejecting. And they know what's going on because they're the ones that's initiating that rejection. But the person on the other side of that does not know what's going on most generally. There can be times where probably something happens between the two of you and it's kind of a known that, okay, we both are fighting and whatever. Yeah. We know why it's not happening, It's good. And a lot of times, makeup sex comes in to play where, we get mad and have a fight or whatever. And then some people's love language is, well, let's go have sex. And they just want to fix it with all of that. But I think we've talked about that before.
It doesn't fix anything.
Makeup sex doesn't fix everything. That
Maybe great at that moment.
Yeah. There's an episode that you can go back and listen to on that one as well. And actually, I think that was the title of that episode, is Sex Doesn't Fix Everything. That's not a good time to initiate that when you're in the middle of a big knockdown, drag out, having a fight, because when you're done, that problem's still there. That sex didn't fix none of that.
No.
And the longer those issues go on, it gets worse.
Right. Again, a miscommunication. You're not you missed your opportunity to communicate and talk about it. And, like you said, makeup sex is great, but it doesn't fix anything.
Right. Yeah, you've got to make sure. One thing that I've come to realize over the years is, whenever you and I have those moments, those intimate moments between each other, those are actually, they invigorate me. Mm-hmm. They build me up, and I'm a much happier person. I'm a much better person every time that happens, because we're not using it to fix a problem.
Right. Oh, that's so good.
We're using it because God gave us that gift, first of all. Yeah. And as we talked about 2 weeks ago, this sexual relationship between us reflects the intimate relationship that we do have with God. God fully created sex and why it's supposed to happen, and all of the intimacy points, everything about it. That's a creation from God, and He wants us to have that. But we have to do it within the boundaries that He set for us. Yeah, and make sure that we do it, use it for the right reasons and those kinds of things. And one of the biggest reasons, besides having children, is just for us to stay intimately connected, to have a love like we've never seen before. And that's just the connection that we have. I think, as we talked through this week, we're going to probably go ahead and stop it with this one and try to finish up next week on this. There's been a lot of good points made here, and I hope that maybe some people is listening, maybe some of your questions that you've had about it, maybe we've answered that in some way, some fashion or form. But I think for myself, one of the biggest takeaways I think from this week that I can say as we go here is always understand that if you're having problems with your sex life with you and your spouse, make sure you guys talk about it. Mm-hmm. Don't push it underneath the rug and think, well, next time it'll be okay. Well, next time it may not be okay. It may be the same thing.
Right.
And then you're going to push it under the rug again. And then you're going to have this habitual thing going on. And the whole time, both of you in your minds, it's going to start building up. And you're going to have these issues going on, trying to figure out, what do I need to fix this? But you're not going to know how to fix it because you're not talking to each other about it on what the issues are. And so you have to make sure that you keep that communication open between each other. And even if it's something that maybe it's going to hurt your spouse's feelings, maybe something has been going on that's just not been quite right, and maybe they need called out on it. Again, that's a communication issue. We always, as spouses, we need to know what's going on in each other's minds. And if there's issues taking place that is causing problems in the relationship, we need to get that out on the table, and we need to talk through that. And I know we make it sound super easy as we're talking about it here, and we know it's not a lot of times. But I will honestly say, though, that if you have a true love for your spouse and you work on communication and you work on, if your love for your spouse is worth more than anything else, you're going to find a way to talk through problems.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just
100% right.
That's just the way it is. Because Michelle and I, when we have disagreements or have issues or whatever, sometimes it might fester for a day or two before we say anything, but you can about guarantee we're always going to come to the table eventually, and we are going to discuss it.
You're exactly right.
We're going to get it out there in the open and get it fixed, because we already know what happens if it doesn't get fixed. So, did you have anything that you wanted to add to this week's?
No.
Well, I think this has been a really good take on the issue of the sexless marriage for this week. We pray that none of you guys are going through this, but we know this is very common. And if you are going through it, there is hope. Make sure that you keep your Bible reading, your prayer life, your church community that's around you. Make sure you take advantage of all of that first and foremost, and then ask God to direct you both as a couple in what you need to do to navigate through this time and this season in your life where you're fighting these problems and these issues. And always know that it's not okay to turn your spouse down all the time if they have that desire. I mean, you're fortunate. There's people out there that don't love each other at all. And here you've got a spouse that obviously does love you and wants to partake in that with you. When you turn them down, then you're creating a bigger monster in the room, basically. And you have to figure out within your own self, ask God to reveal to you, what is it that's causing my issue to want to not do this with my spouse? Because God wants us to do these things with each other. And so in essence, we're basically breaking the covenant we have with God and breaking that covenant in our marriage. It's all or nothing. That's what that covenant is. Everything that's included in the marriage, it's everything. Everything that I have within me, I give to Michelle, and the same comes back to me. Anytime you hold something back, then you are breaking that covenant between not only yourselves and between God, because God, in essence, created that covenant. And so always keep that in mind and try to make sure you resolve through those issues as they come up. So that's going to be all for this week then. Next week when we come back, we're going to talk about how to resurrect sex. We've got 4 steps that we're going to go through, and hopefully one of these steps will resonate with you if you're having these issues, and we'll try to talk through those and try to share some light on maybe some issues that's going on in your life and how to fix those. Of course, to get that, you need to make sure that you're subscribed to our podcast. So if you've not subscribed, please do. You can get this podcast pretty much anywhere you can get podcasts. You can check out our website, Marriage, Life, and More, if you have any further question about our ministry and where you can listen to our episodes at. But as for now, we're going to call that a wrap. That's all for this week, and we pray that as we go, that your marriage is stronger and your walk with God is closer after this episode. This is an extension of Connecting the Gap Ministries, and we pray that you have a blessed week.